Hi, I'm Kate Riley.
And I'm Dieter Benz.
And what we're going to be talking about today, as I mentioned on our last report, as we were getting into the town finances that were discussed at last month's meeting, I did discover some anomalies when I started reviewing some of the information that was available. Specifically today, what I've been reviewing is their annual report, and we're going to go over some of the funds that they're reporting. We're going to find some pretty scary things. The 2010 annual report that's using the town's own reported figures. Numbers are way off, and it's a pretty scary thing to look at. But one thing is very clear: the revenues to support the town are not there. What we're going to be looking at here is the stanovsky+washington 2010 Annual Report of Operations. It's dated January 13, 2011. What I did was I took their numbers and I transferred them over to a spreadsheet so I could implement the formulas to see where we are on their figures. The first thing that jumped out at me was they're including beginning balances, which looks like they're beginning cash balances in the fund, as part of their revenues for the period, which is really incorrect accounting. It's throwing off all of their numbers, and it continues to do that through all of the fund reporting information here that we're going to see going forward. The next thing that jumped out at me was their 2010 actual revenues were understated by $108,000. So to me, the big question is, where is that $108,000? Why isn't it reported here? Again, it also throws off their 2011 budget reporting. They don't include the beginning balance there where they did on the 2010 budget and actual, so it's very interesting that they're using different formulas for their information here. The next thing that we looked at was the total expense items for the general fund. The total expenses budgeted, they reflect $493,164 on the town's report, but my spreadsheet comes up with $352,150. Again, where's the difference there? There's a difference of $141,000. Where is that money? The big item here on the expense end is their total expenses reflect the actual expenses for 2010, come up to $799,170. That's $799,000. Spreadsheet totaled their same figures, $379,863. So there's a difference here of $419,307. Again, where is that money? It's not accounted for. Same numbers that were on their sheet. I used the same information and it came up with a very different figure, and I have verified that a couple different ways. So again, where's that $419,000 on the general fund balance? And lastly, on the general fund, if we look at their forecasted balance, which is, again, they've reported it incorrectly. What you need to do is be taking your net revenues after deducting your expenses from total revenues and adding that to your beginning balance so that you really come up with a true forecasted balance figure. So their forecasted balance for the budgeted 2010 was $243, and if you do it correctly, it comes up to $140,771. And then on the actual figures, it's even more interesting. Again, we're showing another huge disparity. Their actual reported forecasted balance, which is actually an actual balance, $611,522, where I came up on my spreadsheet doing it correctly. I come up with $1,138,829. Again, we're coming up with a disparity of $527,000 just on this one fund, the beginning fund, the general fund balance. $527,000. So again, where is this money located? Where is it sitting? Where is it accounted for? The next fund we're going to take a look at is the street fund. And this is an interesting point that's kind of goes through all the funds. When you get to your total actual balance for the end of the year, you should actually be taking that balance forward and using it for your beginning number for the next year. In other words, their actual balance, forecasted balance for 2010 should have been carried forward and be used as their beginning balance for 2011. They haven't done that on any of the funds throughout the period. So I think an explanation is required as to why those numbers are very different, because what we're coming up with is some very large numbers of money being unaccounted for, missing. We don't know what the situation is, but there's quite a bit of money, and when we get to the end, you'll see that it really adds up to a lot of money. The expenses here on the street fund, again, they come up to $67,700, and they actually reported $142,855. And if you look at the two figures that make up their numbers, $65,200 and $2,500, that doesn't come close to $142,000. So you don't even need a calculator to figure this one out. All you got to do is look at this one. You know there's something wrong with it. We're off by $75,000 just in this one section alone. And then when we get down to the street fund balance at the end of 2010 and looking at the beginning for 2011, we're actually showing, again, some big differences here. Street fund net revenues was actually a negative number. In other words, we lost money according to the budget, but they didn't know that because they have their numbers incorrectly and they're not adding correctly or subtracting correctly. But what's even more frightening is that we're showing a negative actual number. We actually lost $61,000 in the street fund activities for 2010. Now again, they're not taking that ending number, 61,063 right here, and using that as the beginning number for their 2011 number. The next fund we're going to take a quick look at is the water utility fund. I always like to check revenues first, and what we find here is when you add up their revenue numbers, they come up, they're reflecting 15,331, but if you actually add these numbers together, the total is 150,331. That's understated by $135,000. In other words, where is that money? There's $135,000 of revenues that are just gone, according to their numbers here. The actual total revenues, excluding that beginning cash figure, in other words, reported correctly, total revenues budgeted should have been $68,500. They had $110,000. Actual revenues generated $92,038. Their figures total $150,000, but that's including that beginning cash, so that's an error. And then their actual budgeted 2011 revenues is actually correct because, again, they're deciding not to use that beginning number. Sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't for 2011, so it's kind of confusing. It makes it very difficult to really take a look at what's going on here. The water fund utility net revenues, $36,600, another negative number on their budget. They should have known that had they been doing their numbers correctly. And then again, in this water utility fund, they have $79,487 for their actual balance at the end of 2010, but they're starting with 2011 budget at $89,023. So again, there's a difference there. And then the other interesting thing here on this water utility fund is they don't even have totals for the budgeted or forecasted expenses. In other words, you've got line items here and here in this section, but they didn't bring the totals down, which, you know, obviously is throwing off their numbers. That's why they didn't know they were under budgeting for the fund there. So it's not surprising that we're having some issues with our finances at the town. The next fund here is the Water System Capital Improvement Fund. Again, they're using their beginning balances incorrectly. Those beginning balances then again throw off their real revenues. It's very deceiving when they're saying they have $23,000 in revenues and there's really only $2,400. That begins to concern us with regard to going forward. When are we going to see some actual revenues that are going to support the town? And then here in the Water System Capital Improvement revenues, their real revenues were $2,435, but they're reporting $23,005. This is a pretty scary level to be at if you're looking at, you know, really creating revenues to support a fund or an activity that's going on within the town. And then the last one we're going to take a look at is the Wastewater Utility Fund. Here again we're going to show some very large problems with regard to money not being accounted for, incorrect figures. Let's take a look here at the actual revenue number that they come up with. They've got a total here of $3,784,965, but my spreadsheet, using those same numbers in that column, came up with $3,371,585. That's a shortfall of $413,380. Again, where is that money? Where is it sitting? Where is it accounted for? Who's got it? Who knows anything about it? I mean, these are questions that we need to have answered. The total budgeted expense is incorrect. They've overstated it by $442,000. If you total these figures in this column here in the budget for 2010, my spreadsheet comes up with $3,552,089. Their total is showing $3,994,420, which is again is overstated by $442,000. Their figures show $1,324,279. My spreadsheet, using the correct formulas and their figures, comes up with $900,900. They've overstated the remaining forecasted balance in this fund by $423,379. And then the last thing I did on my spreadsheet was after I finished looking at all of the numbers, I totaled up all of the missing and unaccounted for funds, and what I come up with is $2,328,713 that are missing or unaccounted for according to the town's own reported numbers. This $2,328,713 is a very significant number. And the biggest problem with this is that we now have a mayor and a town council who are making decisions based on faulty information. This is a report of Mayor Black's first year of operations. He's now in the second year of his administration. Why don't they know this information?